Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking to Antti Jokela, who's the Aftersales Director for Nissan Nordic. Nissan Nordic have been in the forefront of rolling out electric vehicles, and in some countries such as Norway, they've moved completely from selling internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. So we're going to be looking into some of the outcomes of this process and what stood out for them. Let's jump into it. Antti, thanks very much for joining us today. Great to have you talking to us on the show. Maybe to start off, Nissan Nordic has a long history of rolling out electric vehicles. You're probably the leader in terms of us manufacturer, internal combustion engine manufacturer, to start rolling out electric vehicles. And you started that around 2007. Can you tell us a little bit about the backstory to that and how it all rolled out?
Thank you, John. And I think for if you look for the history, yes, as you mentioned, in 2007, 2008, Nissan was closing to launch for the first generation Leaf. And if I look for the sum of our Nordic markets, which when we are speaking about the Nordic markets, I'm meaning mainly for Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. And if we are looking for, especially for the Norwegian market, and I think they were really advanced on this electrification, if I may. And when they were building some cars in garages first. And when we introduced the first Leaf, the market was totally ready. And when we start on the market, it was really low in the availability of the cars, so that we were really early adapters. And if you look for the network readiness, in 2010, we were telling for our network that we will come with the full battery EV, which is fully designed to be EV car. And we were stating also that it's the first mass-produced car in the world. And a big investment from the Nissan side. Our starting point was for the network setting up to make safety first, securing that whenever we do a maintenance on the cars, how we will actually do the sales process, we don't want to have for any technicians or any persons, especially in the workshops, to get affected by safety issues with the high voltage batteries. And we will be doing quite a lot of studies to understand what is the network condition and also for the readiness. And then we start actually bringing the first cars in the market. So we were not only focusing for the showrooms, the main focus was to make sure that the technicians are safety point of view okay, and also the readiness to get for the EV cars in the market. So really, really early start from that moment.
With 30 years' experience in auto logistics and state-of-the-art locations in 5 major Australian cities, Precar Fleet Services are a premier all-in-one solutions provider for commercial vehicle fleet operators, leasing companies and original equipment manufacturers. Please visit precar.com.au and click on the link to Fleet Services.
And Antti, were there any surprises for you? Did anything stand out over that initial launch period that you think that was something that you didn't expect, or did it all just go as had been planned?
I would say that one which nobody couldn't expect, that how rapidly the market was increasing. And I think the speed is the magic word, which was coming immediately. That was not only from our dealers, it was the customers. And also if the incentive programs from the governmental sources are in place, then the market evolution happens really fast. And that was surprising us that we were planning to have first a really small amount of the outlets to make the distribution and service, but we quite rapidly start coming in clear for us that we need to have for the full network on the board, and then quite a big ramp up to get for the training and tooling and also for the readiness to sell. That was the speed in that time.
So you think a lot of that was driven by government? Was mainly government driving that? Or was it institutions or people asking for it?
I think naturally for the incentives has been driving. In Europe, there has been a certain markets where the governmental incentives has been strong. And especially in the Norwegian market, where the government was releasing for the VAT from the cars, and also for the car taxation. And top of that one, they were subsidizing with road tolls and also for the public charging and even public free parking spots. Of course, the package of incentives was so strong that it was making the EV car more affordable than the normal ICE vehicle on that time. And of course, customers are more knowledgeable on the environmental aspect on the usage for the EV. Then it was, I think, a good formula, and we were early adapters, and we were afterwards we could say that it was right time to be in the markets.
Yeah, because in Australia here, what government has just started introducing fuel efficiency laws. I think we're in Nordic before 2005. So they just started to introduce those here now. And there's been quite a bit of pushback from both industry and from people in the market. That was never the case in Nordics at all. There was no pushback from people or corporations as such, was it? Or do you know of any?
I think if we're speaking about the Nordics, there's a big deviation between the markets. Norway, the readiness was there, so that the high subsidies from the government, also for the awareness of the customers, less afraid, and also for public infrastructure building for the charging network was rapidly increasing. But what happens in the same time in Finland or Sweden or Denmark, these three countries, they were more looking after what happens in Norway. And today, still now we are from 14 years ahead from when we launched from 2010, then we are 2024 now. Still, the Finnish market is now on the ramp-up phase. Sweden has been waking up a bit. Denmark is a certain way rolling. But there's an incentive in each of the countries, but in Norway, the incentives and the market readiness was so obvious. That was making the Norway running so fast. And it was extremely fast in the first stage. And I would say the big boom was 2014 to 2019 between that time. And of course, happy to be for the representing the Nissan brand, as we were the early adapters and we had a good product, and it was recognized on the market as a high quality product, and that way we are proud on the quality of the vehicle. And of course now there's a number of competitors since that, but still we are holding for the big position in the market, and that way we are leading group on there.
Antti, we talk about the charging infrastructure. There's a lot of debate in Australia about charging infrastructure because a lot of that hasn't been rolled out yet, and especially for people in apartments. How do they get the charging infrastructure installed? What are the costs going to be? What have been the big challenges around charging infrastructure, and how has that been overcome?
I think it depends on the housing arrangements. Of course, when we are speaking about the block houses, then if there would be actually legal laws or legislation put in force, which is forcing for the housing companies to put for the charging infrastructure in place, that will be a changer. But when we are speaking about the houses and how the people are adapting, the majority of the customers, they are charging the cars at their home. That's the common place. And if I look for the home charging device, everybody was expecting that when it comes to second or third generation home charging devices, but still we have a lot of customers who has in Norway the first charger what has been installed already, let's say 2012, 2013, 14, somewhere on that time, and they are still using. It's a question about the speed and the vehicle's capability for the different speeds of charging. And if you look for our first cars, they were capable to take for 3.6 kilowatts charging, and that suits for biggest portion of the customers still today. If I take an assumption that the customer has, for example, 90 kilowatts battery in their car, and they have a 50% of the battery left, and they want to get charged that further, then if it's a 3.6 kilowatts per hour, then it means that during the night they are reaching over 90% of the capacity, and that's absolutely fine. So that the speed on the home charging is not an issue. Of course, when we are speaking about the commercial use and LCVs on the daily commercial purposes, then the rapid charging is naturally for the requirement for that kind of running for the commercial use of the vehicles or persons who are really driving a lot during the day. I had a luxury to speak, by the way, on the last week with one Norwegian taxi company owner who is running a business with the 60 kilowatt Leaf. And he was saying that for his daily taxi purposes, he never used for quick charging. And he says that during last 2.5 years, what he has been running for the vehicle, he has been only used the quick charging 2 times. That is, for me, I was expecting that he would answer like twice a day or twice a week, but he says that the car is mainly standing for 6 to 10 hours per day, and that is enough for keep that one. But in this case, the home charger was a bit more powerful than these slowest ones.
And Antti, what a lot of people don't realize is how big Finland and Norway and Sweden is. For those long distance drives, how have they catered for that? Have they set up chargers at petrol where you can fill petrol? Do those work out well? How many have they installed there, or how do they work?
Yeah, a good question. Regarding for charging stations, of course, if you go for a McDonald's or you go for the local shops, bigger shopping malls naturally in their parking slots, but if bigger shops that they have in front of them, and you don't need to go specifically to the petrol station because it could be a cafeteria. But also we can see that there's a big charging, let's say, fields. You can see for the quick chargers maybe 20 to 30 quick chargers on the same area. So that quite a lot of, and if every charger has 2 connectors, it means that there could be 50, 60 cars even in the same time. Those has been the biggest what I've seen in Norway. But I haven't never seen them full either, so that normal would be that in the next to the shop there's 2 to 3 quick chargers, and if you go to the shopping mall, you will have for this kind of 22 kilowatt charging devices or 11 kilowatt charging devices on there. But when we are speaking about the quick chargers, then we are speaking about 150 up to 300 kilowatt chargers. Some of the cars today are capable to take over the 100 kilowatts per hour on there, so that's maximum. But of course, that needs also the good conditions that customers needs to preheat or pre-cool the battery before they go for charging, etc. And then it comes also the vehicle technical spec as well, what they can do.
Antti, one of the things you, especially Finland, Norway, Sweden, lead in is having green electricity. Can you talk about that? Because that's always what people say in Australia is, oh, there's no point to charge it with fuel that comes from coal-fired power station.
Yeah, regarding for what kind of electricity the consumers are requesting, it varies as everything. But I think when we are speaking about the quick chargers or different RFIDs to recognize you when you go to the charging, it could be that you have still for your own subscription behind it, that where you can choose what kind of electricity you are buying for. And I don't see the big difference that if one station is telling that, okay, they have a wind-produced electricity, one is maybe they are not nuclear, they don't so much advertise on that, but customers are not following too much on that today. Of course, when they are in their household or in the companies itself, they might actually have a preference that they only purchase for the electricity which is produced in a certain specific way.
Now, Antti, in terms of some countries like Norway, you've got to a stage now where you only sell electric vehicles into those countries. So you've discontinued selling internal combustion engines. And that's more than 10 years now. What has been the impact of that? And what have you noticed about that transition? Because Nissan is a very successful company in most of those, in all of those markets. So have you seen any change, or has anything changed for Nissan SA?
Naturally. Of course, there's a partial information, which is Nissan and our dealers' data, which I cannot share. But let's go for a few basics. When we are looking for the Norway, which is the best example of the electrification, they start with 100% combustion engine country, and then start to be actually first PHVs coming on the market, then the different hybrids, then not naturally the petrol and diesel cars itself start to actually go lower. And from 2011, we had for diesel was 75% of the Norwegian market, and today the diesel is only in the LCVs. There may be a few handful of the cars. Then also for the hybrid market, which was looking that it could start increasing, but in the governmental support was so clearly steering for full battery EVs that was killing everything else. Now, if we are only looking for the passenger cars, the market is more than 90% consistently, or close to 95%, only full battery EVs. And if we look how that impacts for our daily business, when the EVs was introduced on the market, there was no oil in the cars, less liquids. Naturally, it is impacting for the turnover on the dealer sales. Of course, there was actually even less working hours in the normal services, and naturally that has a negative impact. But at the same time, there was actually big higher tooling requests, and also for the higher education requirement to service, and then the labor cost was slightly increasing. And when we look for the early years in the EV cars, there was the collision business was increasing. And why it was increasing? There was a number of customers who wants to test the car, what it can accelerate, and also at the parking slots, they were mainly for by accident pushing the pedal, and then the car was jumping, because the customers were not sure if the car is running or is it not on. And that was taking for 2 to 4 years, and before ICE and the EV collision amounts start to be similar model by model.
So, Antti, in terms of fires, there's been talk here about, how bad EV fires can be. But then there's a lot of stats saying there's a lot of less fires on EVs compared to internal combustion engines. Have you seen any issues of fires across the Nordics, or has that not been an issue at all?
I think I don't know what would be. I don't have, unfortunately, all the statistics available, but I'm still not frustrated, but I'm seeing also that this is a political game a bit. Those who are actually supporting for the ICE vehicles, they are telling that, okay, every electric car is getting fire, and the other way around. And it depends also what that some of the newspapers, they are quite often writing that, okay, now there has been a fire on the ferry, and it must be caused by EV car because there was EVs on there. Then it's found out that it was not the EV, but then it's already the news are out. So perception is clear that people are a bit worried that if there's fire, but we do not see that there's more fire. But of course, it's now the number of vehicles, and we should look for the insurance data on this. And what comes for the fire itself, it is clear that the electric car needs actually specific treatment from fire department to save the secure. It's exactly the same when we are speaking about the mobile phones or different battery devices, if they start burning, then the fire is more dangerous and not so easy to kill for the fire itself.
And there's also been talk about the weight of the batteries. And because the car is heavier, one, there's more chance of worse type of accidents. And then the second thing, in parking garages, because the parking garages for cars have been, each electric vehicle is 1 ton heavier. If you've got 100 cars parking in 6 stories, that could become an issue. Has that been an issue or not at all?
I haven't never heard any comments on the Nordics regarding for the extra weight what the cars are carrying for, that has been causing any constructional constraints on any buildings. But naturally, theoretically it could be, but we haven't seen any this kind of discussion or any accidents related on this.
And then, Antti, in terms of the warranty, because there's less components compared to an internal combustion engine, do you think we're going to start seeing warranties out for a longer period? Because you just got an electric motor and you've got the battery. So you might get a lot longer warranties. Do you think that will happen in the future? Or do you think that's still something that's got to be played out?
I think, first of all, this is a really market specific, and now we should divide also two different items, the car warranty itself and also for the customer confidence packages, if I may use that word. Car manufacturers, including Nissan and the other brands, they have been introduced for the quite extensive and long warranty periods for the batteries and also for the electric components on the car, mainly for powertrain elements and the battery state of health. And why is that? Reason has been related on the customer's concern that I will buy for the battery and battery car, and what happens after 2 years? Is the battery gone, and is it a high cost? Definitely my answer on the warranty costs on the battery itself is that we are changing some of the modules, but the volume is much less than what we were expecting in 2010. And 2010, when we launched for the first EVs, we were expecting that this will happen really regularly. And also for the other brands, when they came in the market, they said, yes, it will happen and it is an issue. The batteries or engines, of course, if there's a production failure or quality issue, then manufacturers are taking care of those. But overall, battery warranty has been taking risk of customers, and the warranties for the other components, I don't see that has changed, but the battery related element. Norway is in this case a bit specific because there is the consumer law in overall is 5 years, so that's why they have a 5 years warranty for the almost every brand in that market. And as we have in Nissan, we in other Nordic countries, we are running 3 years warranty. But in the case of Norway, battery and electrified components, we have 8 years and 160,000 kilometers. And that's the same what we have in the other Nordic countries as well. And that is coming from us as a manufacturer.
And what was quite interesting, you mentioned in the beginning that you went through hybrids and then straight to electric vehicles. Because what's been interesting here, there's been a lot more interest in hybrid vehicles. And do you think that is just a phase while people get used to electric? Or do you think that will be something that will happen in the market, that hybrid market will grow? Or is that just part of moving to electric?
Okay, regarding for the market evolution from the ICE vehicles, then the hybrids, and then going for the full EVs. Of course, there was first CO2 was the main, and also for the different emissions on the cars was the driver of the taxation. And they start to be much more favorable for a hybrid instead of the full battery EVs. But then consumers quite rapidly start seeing that, hey, the hybrid car, the fuel consumption doesn't drop so much. If it's a plug-in hybrid, some of the customers did not charge their car ever. They will start filling the petrol and they keep driving. And what was the savings on the emission? Not so much. And if we are speaking about hybrids, which has a lot of mileage on it, it's also the fuel consumption is still comparing for the full battery EVs so high. And when we start seeing that the full battery EVs start to have enough range, and I think the ultimate point was that when we were reaching that the cars start to be 350, 400 kilometers, then the customers say that, hey, this is now, I believe that this fits for my personal use. And again, in the Nordic countries, in the winter, when it's extreme conditions, we also experience that it is lower and it naturally impacts. But the customers start to be confident that, hey, I can do this one. So mileage was enough. Then the hybrid was, from the customer point of view, not the point anymore, because the electricity is so cheap still comparing for the petrol price.
Another thing, Antti, the people are talking about that electric vehicles are starting to become like a commodity. They're quite similar because it's electric motor, the battery. Very difficult to differentiate between one brand from another. Do you think that's going to open the door for different sales models like subscription and those type where you just rent the car 2 years, they come and change it, give you another one? Do you think that's going to happen, or what's your view on the future of automotive?
I think the last 10 years we have been discussing that the subscription models, different car sharing modules will come and short term. We have seen that the private lease has been increasing, but that is more financial model because the customers has been concerned about the residual values of the cars, and that way they are keeping the risk out from their hands. But the car sharing has this far, I haven't seen the strong signs that it has been increasing in the markets. Still, it's consumers itself that are they ready for the sharing. And if everybody would share the cars, they still say that the car is so expensive item as a house as well. They don't want to share with the house with somebody else. But some of the house companies, if there's a block house where is 100 families are living, it might be that those housing companies, they own actually few cars and they are that using in the sharing. But it hasn't been actually growing. But I'm seeing that that could be a model in the urban areas especially, and customers want to move out from the owning towards sharing. But I think the market readiness is not there yet.
I think we're seeing the same here. There's quite a lot of interest, especially for younger people. We have in the city we have difficulty for parking. It's expensive to get parking spaces in it, and there's some sort of interest in that. But it hasn't really. I don't think we've seen big volumes of it at this stage.
Yeah, unfortunately, there has been really good startups on this area, and they've been investing quite a lot of money for the marketing and also get the subscriptions activated. But this far, they haven't really made the breakthrough. And I don't know, is this a question about the customers? They want to leave their personal goods in the car? Do they want to have them clean and tight? And also the risk that if there's a dent, if there's some missing items or some scratches, who is taking responsibilities? Some of the countries, some car sharing cars, they are looking not so good, let's put the words that way.
Exactly. I think that's where the challenge is. How do you overcome that? I think some of the technology is developing in that area, but I don't think it's there yet. That'll make it affordable to have that at every housing company or every car share place, that you could check the car automatically when it comes back, sort of a video referencing.
And I think also for the technologies on the cars today, they are supporting this kind of sharing functionalities that you can activate for the without key, open the doors, and you can even start the car by using your mobile phone app and this kind of things. We have seen the similarities, for example, short-term LCV rentals in the furniture stores and those. But one of the concern on that side has been that the cars are unfortunately not so good shape, so that customers do not pay attention on the condition, and if the car is really valuable, then who is paying those costs? And everybody knows that there's no free lunches available, so somebody needs to pay for these costs.
Now that's always a difficult one, to hold accountability and get the money at the time. The same with rental companies.
Exactly.
If they don't charge a customer immediately when he's standing at the desk, it becomes very difficult to come back 2 weeks' time, so but you entered that car.
Yeah, and if they know, as everybody knows, that it's a fund, and you need to actually create the money somewhere, then your estimation, if you have long-term subscription, then you know that your cost might actually jump up if the holding cost is high. Majority of the customers are treating on this well. I can see that in the boat business, in the that kind of sharing of the boats is start to make more sense, but that's we are not in Australia, so that here it's only for a few months season of the boating, so that the winter will rather be skating instead of boating.
Exactly. Antti, thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today. I think we've covered some really interesting topics, and it's great to get your perspective from a completely different market and someone who's gone through that whole process. It's really valuable insight to get an understanding of where we're just starting. I think we're probably 10, 12 years behind you. We're just starting that process in Australia. So it's great to get an insight from you. So thanks very much for chatting to us.
Thank you so much, John. And I'm confident that this electrification will go further. Even now, the markets, some of the markets are a bit against as kind of the cost is there already. Manufacturers has done the investment, and from the consumer point of view and environmental point of view, makes a lot of sense when the infrastructure is in place, and the driving of the EV is so enjoyable. So thanks for so much, John, and all the best for the Australian markets and other markets as well. Go towards electrification. Thanks.
Thanks, Antti.